Roll call, please.
Mayor Beagle,
Present?
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Present.
Councilmember Gotchall, Councilmember Grunland Fox. Here. Councilmember Sharp is excused. Councilmember Smiley,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight. City Manager?
I have no changes or additions, sir.
Assistant City Manager?
I have none, sir.
Any from the dais? Councilmember Gaccio?
I'd ask that we please move the correspondence item, new business for discussion.
Will do. Correspondence will be moved to new business number 5.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Behrman?
I'd also like to add a discussion on priority waste.
All right. Discussion on priority waste will be number 6. Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes. We've got one set of minutes to approve tonight, and that's from the regular city council meeting from August 27th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Support. Any questions? Corrections? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the regular city council meeting of August 27th, 2024. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Correspondence is going to be moved to new business number 5, which brings up the city manager's reports. We have 2 managers' reports tonight. The first is the fire report from July 2024. Any questions? Councilmember Grunland Fox?
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
I don't have a question. I just have a thank you very much. I see that the response times are dropping, and it's great to see. So great job to you and our firefighters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. And I feel the same way. Like I said, you guys have done a great job there turning things around, and the morale is unbelievable up there, and it's nice to see smiles again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Police report from July 2024. Any questions? All right, seeing none, I will move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
Support.
We got a motion and a support to approve the consent agenda as presented tonight. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is the call to the public. The rules to the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody with a first call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public and move on to unfinished business. We have 2 unfinished business items tonight. The first one is a consideration of a second reading and adoption of an amendatory ordinance to conditionally rezone 7.2 acres of property located at 31201 Old Wixom Road, parcel identification number 22-06-200-035, from Village Center Area Core to Village Center Area Transitional, with the conditions from the applicant as proposed, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Do I have a motion?
So.
Very good. Mr. Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is consistent with your first reading and consideration from the August 27th meeting to conditionally rezone a portion of this property. I won't walk through the entire concept for this, but essentially the applicant's seeking to rezone a portion of the property to do a condominium townhouse project. If City Council were to authorize the second reading and adoption of this conditional rezoning ordinance, you'd be authorizing the mayor to sign the conditional rezoning agreement with the conditions outlined from the applicant, and it's included in your agenda packet. Their next step would then be to work on the preliminary site condominium submission and review process, which will start with Planning Commission and then come back to City Council, and then also final review with Planning Commission and City Council. So multi-step process, but this is the first step, and if there are any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Do we have any additional questions? Councilmember Gaccio.
Just, I guess not questions, but comments, and I spoke with the Assistant City Manager a little bit about this, and it kind of plays on some of the comments I made previously regarding the rezoning. And so just in terms of I understand, again, unique parcel here, and switching it to VCA transition may make sense. But I want to make sure that we're doing it in a mindful way when it is developed. Looking at the proposal that was put in front of us, again, hopefully we can look, and Planning Commission can look at not having condos along Pontiac Trail. Maybe those are oriented so the front doors are facing east-west, kind of like a gateway entrance to the neighborhood. And then that would help, because you have a gas station on one side, and then you have the Gibson House on the other. But that's a high traffic area. I don't want to see condos right on there. I don't think it'll be super appealing if there are. The other note that I kind of had, I know when Robertson was developing their additional phases or their final phases, which are VCA core, we had all come to an agreement that we wouldn't have any front doors facing garages. And that's kind of behind Little Caesars, that phase has front doors facing front doors. And that's the agreement that we have for our VCA core. And so I feel like if we're moving this from core to transition, we should be doing even a little bit better. And so I know that we're not voting on the specific proposal today, but just in terms of the thoughtfulness, hopefully that Planning Commission will have. Each one of these buildings that we've been presented in our packet is kind of an island, and the front doors generally face parking lot. And there seems to be more parking than our actual VCA core, and these have garages as to our core. So I don't feel like the current plan, even though we're not voting on that today, that's not a transition from core in my mind. That is more core than even what we have now. One development maybe that Planning Commission can key in on, and maybe the developers as well as they're going through this. There's in Canton, one of the street names in there is West Crystal Circle. I know I've shown a few condos in that development myself, but that has more of like a town square kind of feeling where front doors are facing front doors and green space, and they still have garages and parking behind. But I'm going to support approving this today to transition, but I want to make sure when the development proposal comes to us that it builds upon what we already have in our core, not more parking, more asphalt than we already have. So that's what I wanted to share, since this will go to Planning Commission. Hopefully they can have a look. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the consideration of a second reading and adoption of an amendatory ordinance to conditionally rezone 7.2 acres of the property located at 31201 Old Wixom Road, parcel identification number 22-06-200-035, from Village Center area to core to Village Center area transitional, with the conditions from the applicant as proposed, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And unfinished business number 2 is a recommendation to approve the second reading and adoption of an amendatory ordinance to amend Title 18 zoning, Chapter 18.16 signs, Sections 18.16.020 and 18.16.070 to clarify and update definitions, sign design standards, prohibited signs, and appeals on variances in the Village Center area zoning district. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Mr. Benson, you're up again.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is also consistent with the first reading of the ordinance that you all considered at your August 27th meeting. I won't walk through every proposed change within this revised ordinance, But I do want to make the specific note that there was a request to change the example image used for matching or stylistically similar awnings or projecting signs in section E1E. So I did want to make the note that we did change that picture out, and it is included in the clean version of the proposed ordinance. The red line version of this, when you redline things, it's not always as clear that it's being removed. It still leaves the image. So I just wanted to make that clear that we did replace that image, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve the second reading and adoption of the mandatory ordinance to amend Title 18.00 zoning, Chapter 18.16 signs, Sections 18.16.020 and 18.16.070 to clarify and update definitions, sign design standards, prohibited signs and appeals and variances in the village center area zoning districts. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And that concludes the unfinished business portion of the meeting tonight. Move on to new business. New business number 1 is a discussion regarding an ordinance to amend Title 9.00 Public Peace and Welfare, Chapter 9.16 Offenses Pertaining to Property, and add a new section 9.16.140 Graffiti, and to provide penalties for violations thereof. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will actually be splitting this item with City Manager Brown, but the short answer here is we wanted to start a conversation with City Council about the potential for adding a new ordinance section specifically pertaining to graffiti. We've seen it become a slightly more common occurrence in Wixom, specifically in some of our commercial centers on the north side of town. Currently, we do have the ability to take ordinance code action against graffiti, both on the property owner side as well as on the offender side via the property maintenance code, which the city has adopted the entire package. And I did cite the specific section of the International Property Maintenance Code that we use for that. However, we do have the ability as a municipality to kind of set our own more specific or more detailed rules. And given how this has come up more often, we talked to this city attorney, and attached to this agenda item is just a sample graffiti ordinance, and we just wanted to have a conversation to kind of get city council's feel on that. If this is something you'd like to look at more, in addition, I'll kick it over to City Manager Brown if you have any kind of additional context to add.
Yeah, just that we were concerned about this issue coming up. It's something that I've seen become a bigger issue in other communities I've been involved with, and I want to see that not be the case here in Wixom. And we really don't have an appropriate, I'm going to say the other mechanism that we do have is probably not quite up to what we're looking for in terms of addressing graffiti. And having our own ordinance would be an improvement in that direction of having something on hand that we could actually take action with and see things addressed more quickly than we're experiencing right now. So that's the purpose of it. The first draft is exactly that, just a draft. If you have any commentary on the exact content of it, I'd be happy to hear from you about that tonight. But we are going to look to have a public hearing about it, and that'd probably be the appropriate time to bring up those kind of issues and those kind of concerns. But in the interim, if there's anything that you wanted to point out about the draft ordinance, that would be fine. We have it listed as a misdemeanor in this particular one. There's a choice between a civil infraction or a misdemeanor, and the choice was made to make it a little bit more serious on the misdemeanor side, and that's what's listed on the draft ordinance as it stands on page 1 under B. That's really the only context that I wanted to provide. Looking for you to take action to get a public hearing scheduled for us to start the process if you're interested in pursuing an ordinance for graffiti.
Councilmember Behrman?
Thank you. I guess my question is, I know there's been a couple properties I've noticed graffiti at. Are the landlords of these properties just not moving forward with removing it? I know they've worked on the one piece of property. It's not quite gone yet. But like, for example, where the Dollar Tree is and whatnot, I haven't driven back there recently. Is it still covered in graffiti, or has that been cleaned up?
They have cleaned it up. In both cases, those two specific examples, which tend to be our most prominent right now, they've both worked to address it. They've been responsive when we contact them. And some are better at getting somebody out there to do it than others, and that was kind of one of the issues we've seen is sometimes it takes them longer to get a company out to start cleaning it than we would like. But in both cases, they have been very responsive in seeking to get it off. Now the one farther north does get tagged more frequently. They've probably been tagged, Phil, maybe 4 or 5 times in the last 2 years. So it's a recurring issue in that particular spot, and we're kind of seeing it spread a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a little frustration in the difference between the removals. The one
The brick facade facing the major street was kind of an interesting place to get tagged, so.
Right.
But,
one was more successful in removing it than the other one was, and that's also kind of what we want to address in the ordinance. Timing, the ability to move things along more quickly, and then also the efficacy of the cover.
but the quicker it's removed, the quicker people will stop doing it.
Exactly, that is
So.
the general common wisdom on that front. The sooner you cover it, the better off you are as to not seeing it again, because you're not getting any extensive reaction when it's covered immediately or quickly.
Okay. Well, I'm in support, thank you.
I just want to make one additional note. The other benefit of this local ordinance is it would specifically clarify the city's ability to go remove it. Theoretically, we can do that now, but our ordinance is, again, because we don't have a specific graffiti ordinance, it's not as directly clear. So having an ordinance would make it more explicitly clear, really outline the process for the city going to take care of it ourselves. This hasn't been an issue yet, but it's something that we'd like to sort of proactively get put in place should we need that.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. Very much in support of this ordinance. It's a shame our society has elevated this into a form of artistic expression, which unfortunately it has over the course of the last couple of decades. But one of the things I want to make sure that we have covered in the ordinance, though, is that it says one word in there, restitution, and I want to make sure that it's restitution either to the property owner for the removal of that graffiti, or the city, should it actually take action through its DPW on doing the removal itself. And the second one, I think dealing with it with such impunity as a $500 fine is not a good message. I mean, it's half the cost of an iPhone, right? I went back and looked through a lot of our other ordinances, malicious destruction of property, destruction to a building. It's similar language, but when was the last time those fine levels were actually visited? I mean, if it was in the 1980s, maybe we need to take a look at it across the board for those types of offenses, right, for misdemeanors. But those are my 2 pieces of input anyway. Make sure restitution is to the city or the property owner, whoever takes action on it, and then see if there's a way we can raise that fine to, give it some teeth. And if it's a minor, have the parent or guardian be responsible for that restitution.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
Thank you. I also support the ordinance, and I was actually going to bring up exactly what Deputy Mayor Resnick brought up as far as the fines. That seems very low. I don't know if you've looked at other communities' ordinances, but maybe that would be something to look at as well, because I believe some of them are higher. And then in E of the draft ordinance, it says beyond the time indicated. So if the graffiti remains on the property beyond the time indicated, what is the amount of time that we typically give these businesses?
Typically, we do 10 days, so it ends up being about 2 weeks.
I mean, I hate to have, I understand it's their responsibility, and it should be their responsibility, unless we know who the person is that did the graffiti, and then it might be their responsibility to fix it. It shouldn't, the burden shouldn't be on the property owner. They didn't have anything to do with it, if that's possible. Maybe it's not. But that would be my suggestion as well, that something, we look at the fines, maybe 10 days. I don't know if 10 days is a hardship, especially if they can't get anyone to do it. I don't know.
That is part of why that's left open-ended in that particular section. We actually did have a discussion internally about should we be specific at 10 days? And then, given our experience, having the flexibility is valuable in our opinion.
And it probably depends on the message too. If the message is something that, we want to cover up more quickly than something else, then I understand that. Maybe that's something that we can look at as well. But I hate to see, again, the burden be on the owner, the business owner. I know ultimately it's their responsibility. I fully understand that, but they're probably just as upset as we are, or more. That's all. Thank you.
The 10-day period, by the way, was established in this ordinance draft to be consistent with the noxious weed ordinance, which is 10 days as well, to be consistent from the DPW's perspective, since they'll be handling
And that
the
makes
work.
sense, but it's probably a lot easier to get rid of weeds than it is to get rid of a side of a building graffiti, I'm guessing.
There's also different considerations in play. As I mentioned, the common wisdom is that you want to get this covered up as soon as possible, because the quicker you do it, the less impact that the graffiti's having, and the less inclination there is to come back and do it again if they know it's going to be taken down immediately or covered immediately. Noxious weeds is not the same, so.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. Along the same lines, I also feel that 500 should go up. My thought is add a 0, but the I share the same kind of apprehension about the 10 days becoming a burden on the property owners and the business owners. I understand if we cover it up quickly, some people might say, oh, there's no point in doing it. You can also see the flip side where somebody says, hey, fresh canvas, and they go back. And so every 11th day, there's more painting on the side of their building, and then it becomes a burden. I mean, if this has happened a few times, if we had any success tracking down who's doing it, I would imagine that's probably a single-digit success rate for most places. So I understand we want to keep things clean. I also don't want to burden the property owners with like a fast turnaround, especially since we're never going to catch the person that's doing it, or virtually never catch them. I can just see that becoming a big hassle. And as a property owner, I would be upset if my strip mall is getting painted every few weeks, and then I have to keep calling the same crew out, and we just go through, and then I'm paying a fortune in power washing, painting, what the siding is. I mean, I would probably try to extend that or something, and then increase the penalties if we do catch someone. Hopefully those properties that are running into continuous issues are getting security cameras and working with their neighbors to check cameras and whatnot, but I understand most people probably throw a mask on and then go paint, so we'll see. But yeah, I just don't want to burden the property owners with someone else being an idiot, so thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My questions are along the same lines. The 10-day, you said there's some flexibility to that 10 days, though? Can you clarify that for me?
It's referenced in two different sections. So C talks about that the time indicated in the notice, which shall not be less than 10 calendar days after the notice is posted on the property. The flexibility I was talking about was it kind of in reference to E. E and C really do tie together, where it says if any graffiti remains on the property beyond time indicated in a notice, then the city may remove it as we see fit. As it's written, it is pretty tight, but I sort of, when I was describing that flexibility in E, where maybe we don't need to schedule DPW to come out on the 11th day if we've been confirmed that they've got somebody coming out and they'll be there on the 14th day, right? That's what I was kind of referencing there. So at a minimum, we're trying to make sure that they've gotten in contact with us and have established a firm plan that we can hold them to within 10 days, but could potentially be flexible because in E, it doesn't specifically reference that 10 days. That's what I was getting at. But I will say the way this ordinance is written is, overall speaking, intended to be tighter, much tighter.
Yeah, so we need some something we can act on to, keep someone from just putting it off or blowing it off because, an owner that doesn't care. Which, we don't have many of those in Wixom, maybe we don't have any, but, we need to have some control. I have no idea what it takes to, who you call, come out and have that taken care of. Sounds like our DPW can do the job if they have the equipment to do that if necessary. Is it just power washers? Sorry, yeah.
No, that's okay. So there's chemical additives that we use, and then also power washers. It just depends on the medium. If, if we can paint over it, we're gonna, and be able to match the paint, it's quicker that way. But on brick and block work, it's tough, to sandblast or something like that will start depreciating the value of the property as well. So, yeah, it takes a little longer, but we have, what do we call it, goof off, I think, or something similar that we add to it, and it kind of mixes it up so that we can spray it off.
Well, I guess I just want that flexibility in there in case, you've got a good conscientious owner and they've got some chronic issue with spray painters, and I don't know what it takes to get somebody out to do it, scheduling wise and things. So, I like the idea. I mean, we gotta take care of this, get this stuff, off of buildings. But, the owners, let's have, a little sympathy for them, I guess, and not their fault. Thanks, Tim.
Councilmember Behrman?
I was just going to add for clarification, there's 3 different classes of misdemeanors in Michigan. A 93-day misdemeanor, the max fine is $500. So we can't go above $500 on a 93-day misdemeanor. A 1-year misdemeanor, you can go up to $1,000, but I mean, is it a 1-year prison sentence acceptable? I don't know. I mean, that's to put it in, and then, I mean, a high court misdemeanor can go up to $2,000. That's as high as you can go for a misdemeanor. And then the other issue you're getting into, I believe, is where it would have to be prosecuted. Which I think the 93-day misdemeanor can be at district court. But if you start going above and beyond that, then we're having to go to circuit court and use a different prosecutor and cost us more money. So you have to take that all into account on where you want the fine to be.
Unless you went civil infraction. That's the pro and con of that.
Personally, I like the idea of having some teeth with a possibility of 93 days, and that's the highest you can go. That's as high as you can go. But as far as I remember back, $500 has not increased in quite some time.
It's $500 plus costs, as our ordinance draft reads, by the way. So if we, charge to remove graffiti is $500, it effectively becomes $1,000.
That's all I had to add.
I asked for that.
Go ahead, Councilmember Smiley.
Just clear, we're not talking about the actual vandal, we're talking about the businesses, with the $500 and the year one, right?
Yeah, so if someone,
Yeah, okay.
someone tags his BP station, he'd have 10 days to remove it, or he could get a misdemeanor. I feel like, a $500 fine, I feel like going above and beyond that to a business owner is too much, right?
No, the fines here would be would be applied to the tagger, if you will, right? So if no person shall apply graffiti to any surface or structure, a violation shall be a misdemeanor. The only issue to the property owner would be if we had to step in and take care of it, we would charge them for those costs.
We would charge them plus 25%.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess my understanding is you guys wanted a higher fine for even the property owner for not fixing it quicker.
No,
Oh,
for
okay.
the,
Well, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah.
To your point, though, I mean, maybe that's something we can clarify in the ordinance language itself to a better degree.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to charge them.
Yeah,
yeah, they already,
They're not involved after all. It's just we're just asking them to remove it.
any other discussion? So we don't have, we're not going to vote or anything on this tonight, right? Correct? So,
You are not voting on the draft graffiti ordinance. However, we did recommend that if you are interested in moving forward on this ordinance for city council to authorize a public hearing at the appropriate city council meeting for an ordinance to amend. It is the recommended motion in your agenda item.
Just adds the public hearing to it in the recommendation. So that way we can start with the process if you're interested.
okay.
We need to make a motion.
So we need to make a motion with the public hearing part. Okay. So
All
we'll
right,
make-
well, I'll make
Go
a
ahead,
mo-
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the drafting of the graffiti ordinance.
Second.
All right. I got a motion and a second to support a public hearing on the graffiti ordinance. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Do-
No, we didn't
No.
necessarily need you to set a date. Sometimes we do when we ask for you to set public hearings. In this particular case, it can be open, and if we're trying to figure out kind of timing, it would likely be not your next meeting, but the meeting after that.
All right. Very good. Moving on to new business number 2 is a recommendation to authorize the retention of Plant Moran PLLC of Detroit, Michigan for as the city's auditor for a 1-year period covering the regular audit of fiscal year 2023-2024 at a cost not to exceed $75,755. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support?
Marilyn Stamper. Good evening.
Good evening. Like you said, this is a request to authorize the retention of services for Plant Moran again this year to perform the annual audit for fiscal year 23-24. Total cost being $75,755. There's sufficient funding in the budget this year, so no budget amendments required. The city's portion will be $60,960, and F&V will cover the portion of $14,795. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Hello? Hello. Can you tell me when we last went to bid for this?
It's been a long time.
I'd like to go to bid. And
Okay.
This seems extremely high to me for the number of accounts that we have. And I know that their costs have been just skyrocketing, so I would like to go to bid.
This year, you would like to go to bid?
Well, no, because
Okay.
what, in
Yeah.
October, so no, I wouldn't do that to you.
Okay.
But next year.
Next time around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please. I know.
Deputy Mayor?
I must
Okay,
yes.
very good. Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Just on the contrary, I found it very reasonable because I've had to pay for many audits for my businesses, and there were a lot more than this, and a lot less complex structure as well. So Plant Moran's been doing a great job for us over the years, and I know we've been with them since 1957, so if that answers your question. It's, but they've done a fine job, and that's fine, we went for bid for it, but very reasonable from what I've seen before from my own companies.
Councilmember Berman?
I guess my only question was, I know that this particular audit firm was the audit firm that did Wayne Westland schools and Ann Arbor schools, and both of them had some serious issues that the audit firm didn't appear to catch. How do we assure ourselves that they wouldn't not catch the same issues with us?
I mean, I guess there's no guarantee of that. There's always a possibility that things can get missed. They don't look at every single transaction that occurs in the city. Obviously, there's samples that are pulled throughout the process. They don't. No auditing firm looks at every single transaction that the city performs. That would be impossible.
But
So-
we're talking millions of dollars to both of those districts that were in the deficit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't guarantee that. That would be a question for Plant Moran to vouch for and answer.
The one thing I will say, this is not my area of forte, but I will say we are significantly smaller, so it's a little bit easier to wrap your arms around from an auditing perspective, but also from a management perspective. Our general fund budget is $13 million.
13 to 15 million, depending on the year.
So it's just, it's almost apples and oranges in terms of the level of complexity of our budget compared to theirs. Not to dissuade your point, I just, but kind of a counterpoint there.
Okay. I mean, I'm comfortable if that's who you want to use, I just know that both those districts were comfortable with hiring them too, and that's where they're at, so.
I would call Plant Moran the, lack of a better description, the gold standard as far as government audits. There's no guarantee, as Marilyn mentioned, that you're going to catch every potential discrepancy, but Plant Moran's got among the largest staff, amongst the largest amount of experience in the field, great amount of experience with our particular community and our fund system and the way that we do business. I think we'd be well served to have them do this this year. And we'll have to figure out the bid question, but we can take a look at that.
Any other questions? Sure. All right. Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to authorize the retention of Plant Moran, PLLC of Detroit, Michigan, as the city's auditor for a one-year period covering the regular audit of fiscal year 2023-2024 at a cost not to exceed $75,755. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business number 3 is a recommendation to award the bid for installation of a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning rooftop unit on the Library and Community Center building to Allied Building Services of Detroit, Michigan, for a total price not to exceed $39,660, and authorize the associated budget amendment. Need a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Very good. Mr. Sigma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. And what you have before you is the cost of one unit that services the library for the concern that we have with this unit. We've had trouble with the air conditioning aspects of that, so we're trying to move through and be proactive in replacement of the items that are starting to fail. And so we're hoping to get that in by the end of the year. If it does get in before the end of the year, we have a small decrease in cost, but this is the cost if it's after December 31. So after December 31, my understanding is the state has new rules for HVAC units that require additional about a 10% increase in cost overall for that. So we're trying to get it. We put this out to bid recently because that HVAC system did fail, and we had a number of different HVAC manufacturers come in to take a look at it, and we received the 3 bids that you see before you. Yeah, with that kind of background, I'm open for the questions that you may have.
All right. And you're hoping to get it done,
Before the
Allied businesses can get it done? Okay, very
Yep.
good. Deputy Mayor Resnick?
How big is this one? How many ton?
I believe this is a 15-ton unit.
Okay, then the price seems weird. Okay.
Yep.
I just bought some in January, and they were 15 tons, and they're
Yep.
about that price.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. Hello, Mr. Sickman.
Hi.
So the library doesn't have air conditioning right now?
So we do have 8 different units up there, so the other 3 units that are there are compensating for that. I think this one is for the child's section, and because it's a large area, and it's been fairly cool, other than the last few days, we've had some success with that. And we've arranged to have added fans in those areas to push the cooler air from where we're still receiving it from the units over to that area. So it's been tolerable.
Oh, good, okay. But the units failed, it must be replaced.
Yes.
And it's gonna cost like roughly $4,000 more if we wait till after
Well,
the first of the year?
yeah,
It's
and
10%, so-
this number actually includes that number. So in case we can't get it in, we're still covered. So we may be able to save
Oh,
a few
so
dollars
might be-
if they can get
might
it.
be 10%
sooner.
less.
Yeah, maybe.
Correct.
If we can get it in, which
Yep.
that's your intent.
That's our
then.
goal.
I gotcha. Okay. All right, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? And this is a 30-year-old unit, correct? So-
It is.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. So with that, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award the bid for the installation of a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning rooftop unit on the Library and Community Center building to Allied Building Service of Detroit, Michigan, for a total price not to exceed $39,660, and authorize the associated budget amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. New business number 4 is a recommendation to waive the bid process and award the North Wixom Road Sidewalk Construction Project to Fonson Incorporated of Brighton, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $983,838.59, and authorize the associated budget amendment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
You're up again, Mr. Sigmund.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project has been long in coming. We've had a lot of hoops to jump through for this. What we're talking about is building a pathway from the Palmer subdivision down to Charms Road, so Hopkins to Charms Road primarily, and there's some obstacles in the way. One of them is a stream that drains Loon Lake into the Norton Creek division, and that requires a state permit with Eagle, and with the designs that we have, we do have that permit in hand now. And additionally, we have several easements that were required throughout that. We're still working on 3 of them, and we do believe that we'll be able to acquire them here soon. And with that, we'd like to proceed with this particular pathway. Again, there's trees that we're going to be planting in this. There's the bridge that is an aluminum bridge that's 6 feet wide, so that we can get our tool cat over it. And it's a one-piece unit, so they will need time to build and construct that. Has helical piers that go down into the ground to support this. And then additionally, we have some catch basins that would need to be installed for drainage on the properties adjacent to Wixom Road. And there's also Charms Road will get new lighting for the pedestrians that cross there. Right now, we do not have adequate crosswalks for that particular road coming over Wixom Road. And with the speed limits that are there, we feel that it's necessary there. This all came about because of the Pathways millage that we started back in 2008 and just recently reinstituted. And we feel that this is a good addition to our pathways and sidewalks that we do have in place. And with that, I'd be open to questions.
Councilmember Glenn Fox?
Mr. Sigmund?
Hi.
So it's a long time coming, so I'm glad to see that it's happening. So my understanding then from the motion sheet is that the bridge will be completed yet this year? That's the
Yes,
plan?
that would be the plan. They still need to construct that, and that takes several months to get the bridge portion. But they need to start that process going so that we can finish it off in the spring.
Okay, so, and then it says that they'll continue to work on getting those easements.
Yeah.
Are we close to getting the easements?
I want to say yes on that. I believe we have some verbal agreements on that. We do need to get some signatures yet.
I just don't want to build this bridge, put the money into it, and then have it sit there with the bridge to nowhere.
Right,
with,
right.
With no sidewalks. So
Yep.
I don't know if it makes sense to, as much as I'd love to see it this year, does it make sense to wait until we get the easements, or it is a cost thing?
There is, we've had several years, and we feel that over the next few months, if we don't get resolution, we could theoretically go to eminent domain at this point. We've given a number of different proposals. I think we've been more than reasonable with the property owners, and we feel that we have good support for that through our legal counsel.
I would support doing that. I'm sure that the residents are not going to be happy, but it's
Right.
not like we're next to their front door. I mean, we have so much frontage that
Yeah.
it's not even going to make a difference.
We'd like to think so, but it's not our property either. I appreciate,
No.
we're trying to balance both on
I
that.
understand,
Agreed.
I understand. I fully support taking it.
Thank you.
If we don't get to that point, because
And just in case other members of council or Councilmember Gronlund Fox might have a question on that, we did go through a conversation with the legal counsel about the timing of what would come into play if we had to go to an eminent domain kind of thing, and we are, that we would be able to proceed by the spring if we had to take action on that front. It would be completed by that time.
Okay. I mean, hopefully they'll agree and we won't have to go through that, but, I mean, it's been a while. So, thank you.
I know we have one meeting with one of the homeowners pending on this, and we pretty much have an agreement on it. We just have a few things to work out, so it looks promising there. So, Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you again. Is that one of the three?
One of them, yes.
Hello again. So this is a lot for, this is almost $1 million for, a few blocks of sidewalk. But I was hoping you could kind of just give us an overview as to why, one being the bridge. The bottom line is it's kind of a, unique case of, extreme case maybe of sidewalks because of grades and the bridge and, a few other things. Without going into detail every square, just kind of give us an outline of why it's so much.
Yep.
And then just, Mr. Brown, if you could give us just after that an explanation on the reasoning for the no waive the no bid process.
Yep.
Go ahead, thanks.
Yeah, so the bridge itself with the fabrication of the bridge, the aluminum portions, the 7-foot additional sections on either side, and the helical piers that I talked about for the base of each of those, it totals about $316,000 for that piece to be fabricated. And then along...
There has to be a bridge because there's a stream.
Because there's a stream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta think.
We were hoping for a culvert initially, so we were hoping that we could just throw a culvert in there and call it good.
won't work.
Eagle, yeah, because it is a stream from a lake and going into Norton Creek, there were several things that impacted that. So we're following their guidelines on that. So that's one ask.
You have no choice.
Right. Secondly, there's sidewalk grading coming up to it and some ADA compliance things on not only Hopkins, but the Charms Road side that we're needing some additional grading for the ditch work along Wixom Road. And that was another $100,000 for that. The traffic lights are very expensive, and you may see that on a spreadsheet that Steve had developed on that, and you can see that there's almost $200,000 worth of work that we'll have to do on the lights on Charms Road and Wixom intersection. With all of those totals, the ad is about $620,000, and what's left would be like $360,000, which is comparable to what we did on 12 Mile. We feel that there's enough work that the size of it was there, and these are just the additional things that are different to what we did there. So price-wise, that's what we're at.
And the millage is in place for this, and if we're ever going to do sidewalk here, this is what we got to do. We're not putting in fancy sidewalk, we're putting in sidewalk, and
Yep.
this has to happen if we want to do it.
City Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why we're asking for a waive of the bid process is this went out on a bid through Mitten. We had one person bid on it, it was high, and then we approached Fonson, and they gave us a lower bid, so that's why we're asking to waive the bid process.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Councilmember Behrman?
I don't want to vote no because I know what one no vote does to this. I don't like it. It's awfully expensive for a sidewalk, especially when there's a very perfectly good viable sidewalk on the other side of the street. I think the only thing that I could potentially get behind voting this as if, and spending this money and building all of this as if we don't start spending the money and building it till we know we have all three of the easements. And then more particularly, that missing gap before it. I mean, we could spend $900,000 to build this section of sidewalk, and there's still a couple hundred feet south of this, a 50-foot section that it has nothing. So,
I think Assistant City Manager Benson may have an update that he came up with today.
No, that's for different
Can we-
property, Tim.
Is for the 50 feet south of there?
No, yeah, no,
Yeah.
the update I gave you was for property,
Yeah.
not.
South, that's not included in this.
Correct.
But it is
Different
what
sidewalk gap.
he's looking for that particular gap. At
I
15
thought he was
15,
talking,
40.
Councilmember Behrman's talking about the gap just south of the bridge, correct? Or you?
across from CVS,
Oh, I apologize. I misunderstood that. Yes,
I'm sorry.
We've talked to city council before. There is a sidewalk gap there. We've been working on it. We've actually had a breakthrough lately. I'm optimistic. I will not promise you this, but we believe that we'll be able to bring you an agenda item on that before the end of this calendar year. I apologize for misunderstanding.
Yeah, no.
if the other council members would be inclined, I'd be fine approving this contingent on all four of those easements, but I'm not fine voting yes on this as is without those four easements.
If that's a motion, I support that.
I think that could be a motion.
It's gonna
The
appro-
approval of this
the-
process is contingent upon the city receiving the three missing easements in this project and the one easement directly south of this project.
Um,
We have to,
Yeah,
you'd have to vote.
Yeah, we got a motion in a
first.
second. Yeah. What's that?
Or no, it'd be amending.
No, you have to approve by
Amendment.
amendment and then
Yeah.
approve it, the motion as amended.
Further discussion.
Yeah. So we got a motion and a second to approve
The amendment
amendment.
first.
So,
Joe, I have a question.
discussion on the, we'll start with Deputy Mayor Resnick.
So if we go forward with the amendment and have it contingent, my next question is, since Eagle's involved for the stream and the stream crossing, are there opportunities to get DNR grants or other, pedestrian safety grants or something like that to help maybe offset some of the costs for this?
We have been seeking grants similar to that in other areas. This one didn't seem to fit with the grants being offered currently, but that would take another year or two to move through the grant process on something that we haven't received yet.
And my last question regarding the amended motion is, Bonson is only guaranteeing this price if we get it before the end of the year.
We're trying to move forward because they need 4 or 5 months to assemble that bridge. And there's some grade work that they could do yet this fall if accepted. But that's the primary piece that we were trying to get so that they could get the fabrication piece of the aluminum in place to move this forward. So that's kind of the primary from our perspective, getting that moving.
And with the probability of getting the 4 easements, the 3 plus the 1, is only 50%, then it'd be highly unlikely to get that done by the end of this calendar year.
Right. Yes. And to give them, the go ahead for that. You're right.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you again, Mayor Bale. So, how does the easements that we don't have yet, that you're confident of or hopeful of, whatever the case may be, how does that affect, saying you have to get those within the next 3 months, how does that, can you do that? Is that,
We talked with a legal counsel, and they felt confident that we can move forward with that, and that's another directive that we were hoping to get from you folks on that, so that we could, it's either we, give them like a last chance, kind of the letter, or go to eminent domain. And that was our legal counsel's recommendation at this point, to get this moving.
If I may here, cross-examine the witness here, Tim.
Thank you.
So we're talking about Fonson in the fabrication costs of the bridge, which sits at 157, let's call it $158,000. That price is if we proceed now.
Right.
And notwithstanding whether we could obtain the easements by the end of the year, we wouldn't be giving the order to Fonson in time for that to happen before the end of the year, and we would not have this pricing at $158,000. So if council were to approve the amendment as it stands, which I understand you're just adding language that says contingent on acquiring remaining easements within the project and one easement to the south of the project, if that's what the language roughly is.
so I understood it, yeah.
That's well and good, but the $983,839, let's call it, is not likely to be the true cost. We'd have to come back to council with an amendment to it if we went down this path. I don't want to make anybody misunderstand that. There's no way that we're going to be able to proceed with the pricing as it stands right now. Whether Fonson would maintain the pricing, I can't say, but we're at risk of that not being the case. So that's one stipulation that I would mention to council. If we do pass that motion that's before you tonight, the amended motion, it's going to reflect an optimistic price that might have to be adjusted when we actually proceed.
Right, okay. So that leads right into the big picture here, and that is that if we don't amend this, then we'll have at least one no vote in the bigger one, which kills it, which throws us into our only option being the considerably higher one, estimate we got through Mitten. Does that sum it up right?
We can go back out for bid again.
Yeah, we'd probably rebid it.
Oh.
And then,
And then-
ask for a prefabricated bridge. The bid that we came up with in the first response was not a prefabricated bridge, if I recollect.
Building in place.
Yeah, it was building in place. So if we went out with a prefabricated bid spec, we might get a different cost factor, possibly.
Yeah.
And likely.
Possibly Folsom won't raise the price.
It's possible, correct.
If we say, hey, we just got to get a few more ducks in a row, and they're like, well, we'll see, and
Right.
we'll know when we know if it goes up or not.
Yeah, we worked with Fonson on other projects, and, we could be hopeful that they're going to be reasonable on it and would maintain it, but I can't guarantee it. It's my only comment.
Did I describe the general picture of this whole thing correctly there? Is that pretty much where we're at?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Just from the residents that I've talked to, the importance of having a sidewalk on that side as well is because of the traffic and because of the speed of Wixom Road, they don't want to cross Wixom Road, where if we had a sidewalk on that side, they could, from Hopkins and everything, they could just go all the way downtown and stuff like that without having to cross Wixom Road. And that's the importance of that, and that's why we should have a sidewalk on that side of the road. But that's just from what I've talked to. And I'll go down here and I'll come back. Councilmember Gaccio?
Thank you. I had a few notes, but the conversation and questions have generated a few others. First, the amendment, I understand, but I would feasibly guess that if we get the southernmost gap easement, then we would want to adjust this project to include finishing that as well. So then we're kind of adjusting this anyway, so I don't know how all of that works together logistically, because it makes more sense just have whoever does this project finish that off, since it's a neighboring property pretty much. So I don't know about the amendment on that standpoint. Did you say that the pedestrian bridge was gonna be aluminum?
I believe so, yes.
So like aluminum platform too, that people are gonna be
It's a
riding
platform.
bikes over?
It's a platform with, corrugated aluminum so that there's no slip.
Okay. I did.
That's my understanding. Now I could be, yeah,
No slip metal would be a first.
yes.
Right. No, I mean, not slipping on metal. I feel like when it gets slushy, you're slipping anyway. Looking at the project and then looking at Google Street View even, I noticed the property, the house that's at like the southeast corner of Wixom and Hopkins, there's a house there, and then there's some trees that are screening the house from Wixom. Do all of those trees have to come out for this?
There are a number of them that would be coming out, and one of our agreements that has, with that particular easement, was to agree to the cost of installing those trees. So that was part of the agreement for their easement that that was established back in March, I think, of this year, that we agreed to install new arborvitaes or something similar between their fence and the sidewalk there.
This green section on the map that we have here
Yep.
to the north,
Yep.
that we're gonna rescreen that for them?
We will.
Okay, then just wouldn't be a little adverse impact if we said, now you get to look at Wixom Road. So that was one question I had. I'm happy to hear that answer.
Yep.
Did we discuss at all, I know we thought maybe a culvert and then we're told no by Eagle, do a bridge. Then we had the discussion about build in place versus prefab, and that seems to maybe be a spot where we're saving a little bit of money. Did we look at all of just talking to Oakland County and making like a bike walking lane on that small stretch of Wixom with some barricades or something to get away? We already have surface there, and then we don't have to build a bridge that costs $300,000. Do we look at that at all?
Along that area, they wanted to have a buffer between the road and the sidewalk. There was different discussions with the road commission on that, and this was what we came back with.
Yeah, I mean, I
That-
understand the speed, but 300,000 is still like an astronomical number for a little bridge. And then, I don't know that I'll be in favor of, or that I'll like having an aluminum bridge there. But then I look at, like, I believe it's South Commerce Road between Oakley Park and East Commerce, I don't know. Somewhere, but between the two 7-Elevens that are.
Commerce and Commerce.
Yeah, there's that wooden bridge that seems to be closed every other year on the east side of the road because the supports rot out from under it and whatnot. We have obviously a smaller stretch. I don't imagine that we'll have any supports going into the water. But that's like, the wood looks nicer and it's probably quieter and more natural than aluminum. For bike traffic and foot traffic and anybody that wants to jump up and down on it. But I don't know. That's really a big sticking point for me is 300,000 for a tiny bridge. The other thing that I noticed with the project where, especially with the new drawings that we got tonight, I've noticed in the past when we get, especially like the biggest example would be our thaw after winter, these lots, particularly where we're showing the sidewalk going, are usually extremely wet or like pooled water held there for months. And I don't know a sidewalk here would be nice. I understand the access. I don't know how much of a pain this is going to become and a drain on our sidewalk budget if the groundwater and pooled water is constantly eating at like the base and becoming an issue. And so I feel like we need to do a little bit more exploring. I understand the rush to want to take advantage of better pricing, but I feel like in our haste, we're missing some potential issues. And I don't want to build something where, I agree wholeheartedly, it would be not a wise move to approve essentially $1 million for a project we don't even own all the easements for, so I'm not in favor of that. But again, I don't know how the amendment plays into that, since we would then want to add a separate piece, and that affects all the numbers anyway. But I really feel like we're missing a little bit of like deep analysis on this, because those waters those lots are constantly wet at the front, and I don't want to see us build something where the soil's getting eaten at, and then we have vaulting concrete blocks, and then we have people tripping or people complaining, and it just becomes a stretch of hassle, basically. So I feel like, I don't know if we have to approve this tonight. Maybe we can sit on it a meeting or two. I don't know that I would go to the extent of everything being built in, but I feel like I still have some questions that I want to make sure we're getting addressed ahead of time. So I guess I'm in favor of tabling it. I don't know if anyone would support that, but I don't necessarily want to approve it tonight. Thank you.
So in terms of the grading that we have, we did, there is one culvert that would be moved, and there'll be, approximately $80,000 worth of grading that would be required for this. So we'll have a small ditching operation that would move that water further down towards the stream. So there are those thoughts. We did some engineering on that as well, so that would be protected. It is a low area. It's very close to the lake, but we don't anticipate that would be any different than the wetlands that are just south of there, and they've held up fairly well.
So are we building this up then? Because like you mentioned the wetlands area where we have that gap that Councilman Behrman mentioned, that sidewalk area is clearly built up from the wetlands. Wetlands might be 3 feet below that.
Yep.
And that's kind of how these lots are as well, as they're 3 feet. So are we then building the sidewalk base up to road level instead of, or is it going to sit closer to where the grass lies now?
It'll be above the grass layer, but then we want to make sure that we don't trap any water from road runoff onto that. And there's some grading that's included in that. So a portion of it will be graded to fit, but there's a number of things with the grading between the what is that, eight different approaches or driveways that we're crossing that are going to be changing just a little bit too. So we've done our topos on that, and I think that part's set up. I can't remember how much higher though. It's been a while since I looked at these plans, to be honest.
I just wanted to add, Tim, to sort of back you there on the plans that we distributed today. There are 5 catch basins alone just within the stretch just south of the bridge, and I do see that is one of the major areas where the water pools. It's a little bit farther in. You can actually, interestingly enough, you can see it on Google Street View. When you look at it. I don't know that this project would necessarily get that far into the property, so there are still going to be drainage issues in the front yards of some of these folks' properties. That's just not going to be impacted by what we're doing. But I did just want to kind of point that out, that I don't think there are 5 catch basins in that stretch currently. There are a couple.
There's a couple.
But, that's clearly, being added in addition. I mean, $80,000 in grading is a lot.
Yeah, 81,200 or 81,225, is that the number that we
Yeah.
on there? Yeah.
And then, what exactly is being done with traffic controls that costs $200,000?
The placement of the bridge. was a bit of it. So when they install, they got to drill down for the helical piers, so there'll be a drill rig there to drop those down. And then the concrete that they'll have to do traffic control on that day when they install the concrete and those columns. And then when they set the bridge, there'll be a day that they have to do that as well.
So this isn't like adding a crosswalk, 200,000?
Well, there's some, right, there's.
To get changed?
So the lights part, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. So there's minor traffic device, pedestrian crossing pieces, and, yeah, the 130, actually, it's closer to 200,000. Those are specifically for the lighting. So it's
That's while they're doing the work.
yeah, it's an upgrade to that whole system. Because when you're adding lights in Oakland County, you have to replace all of them.
But you're talking at the Charnes and Wixom Road?
Carnes and
intersection?
Wixom Road,
Talk
yes.
about the intersection.
That's what the 200,000 is for.
Yeah, not different.
No, it's not for the lighting that he misspoke to begin with. It's
Right.
for actual traffic
It's
control
traffic
at the
control.
intersection off of Wixom Road there.
Well, there's two pedestrian crosswalk pieces, but then they have to tie into the SCAT system, and that's where the money sits.
I don't know, this, like, literally, the numbers we've started to see recently are like mind-blowing BS. And that's kind of where this falls into pricing wise. $1 million for a few hundred yards of sidewalk is, I feel like we took a poll of residents and said, yes, you approve this, but would you pay $1 million for this? And the overwhelming answer is probably be like, no, we should either get that money back or do something else with it. I'm still on the fence. I would prefer tabling this, to look into it, if we don't feel like that's necessary. I would agree that we need all the easements before we move forward, so I'd probably support that, but if that fails, I feel like, no. And I understand that blows things up, but it's just, I can't even wrap my head around some of these project costs anymore, and I don't know if we need to wait until the spring or the winter when they're looking for more work, and maybe we get more bids. Right now, everybody's busy, so they don't want to bid, and that's maybe why we end up with one bidder. That's just,
Well, that bid was over the holiday, well, it went out in December, and we felt that was the low time for them, so we thought that we were going to be getting the best bid possible. And yeah, this one from Fonson, they finished up our 12-mile thing. They were working on some other projects, and they have an opening, basically, and that's why we got this second bid. And, yeah, it's not just concrete work. That's
I
the
understand
issue.
that, but it is
I know.
$1 million for a few front yards worth of sidewalk is absurd.
Yep.
It's almost like we need to stop spending money on projects. Because I know, speaking to other departments and the quotes that they're getting for stuff to buy things is asinine money. $100 for, what was it, $150 for a voting booth that looks like a TV dinner tray, basically?
Yeah.
That's government pricing. That's not cool.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Thank you. So a few thoughts. As far as the bridge, if it were wood, it would cost more because it's going to be the maintenance. Sidewalks are a lot of money. I mean, they just are. I know that everybody's, it's a lot of money, but I think if you go anywhere, and I'm not saying it's right, it's not right, but it's the way it is, and if we want a sidewalk, we're going to have to pay for it. I do think that, I understand, thank you, City Manager Brown, for talking about that the costs might go up if we don't do this now. Totally understand that. But there again, if we bid it out, maybe we'll have better luck. I'm not comfortable approving this without having everything done. I don't want to, like I said before, I don't want to build a bridge and then have it sit there for 2 years until we can get everything else. And to me, that's more of a waste of money. I did not think about the drainage issue, so I'm glad Councilmember Gotchel brought that up, because I do see that, because I live right there, that every year it's flooded. I feel better now that you said that they've already looked at that, they've taken that into consideration, and that won't be affected, so thank you. So I do support the motion that Councilmember Bierman had proposed or made. I am comfortable with moving forward when we get all the pieces together, and if that means we have to go out to bid, and maybe we should, I'll leave that up to you,
Yep.
if what that looks like. But those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Councilmember Behrman?
So before the meeting this evening, we were talking about our overall city budget, and you said, what, $13, $14 million a year? Somewhere in there?
General fund.
Okay. And to get a new business item that was this small, to spend almost $1 million was the first thing that kind of made me think we haven't thought everything out. And then, eventually I asked and I got a map, and the map I got actually included the lot that is south of this project. So my thought process was the $1 million included that. And then tonight we got another map that doesn't include that section, and now we're being told it doesn't include that section. And for 2 years, we've been reading in our council packets about these easements that our engineering firm was working on, and it looks like we have accumulated 10, and we still need 4 to complete this project. I just feel like we're putting the cart before the horse on this, to approve this astronomical expense with very little information up front. I thank you for the additional information we got this evening, but it really should have been in this packet to spend this kind of money prior to us getting this packet. So even if residents wanted to see it, they had that information. And frankly speaking, if we can't get these easements, then we shouldn't spend any of this money. So I stand by my amendment, and if that means by the time we get the easements, this bid is no longer good, and we have to send it out to bid, or we have to ask them to resubmit, I'm fine with that. Because, there's zero reason why we should be spending $1 million when we don't even know we can build it yet. And in the future, I would just ask for, perhaps the packet be complete with diagrams and maps and the breakdown of where you're spending the money, and not expecting us to go through a bid sheet that, quite frankly, I don't think any of us up here could reasonably put it together the way this explanation was. I just feel like this was a rushed item to go on the agenda this evening, and it shows. And I by the way, I agree the sidewalk needs to go there, but not this way.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yeah, I'm fine with us getting the, locking in the easements first, because that protects us from, something weird happening, and I don't want Wixom to have a bridge to nowhere. But yeah, if we want this sidewalk in this 300 yards-ish, whatever it ends up being, it's going to cost a lot more than what you'd expect a sidewalk to cost, because of all this, needing the bridge, needing the grading. I just want to verify so the drainage issue has been addressed in the engineering, and the sidewalk's going to be no more in danger of water issues than any other sidewalk. Great. And then I also wanted to point, make sure we're all aware that, there's a millage that's paying for this, or, that's still our residents' hard-earned money that's gone into it, but it's money set aside for this purpose. And is there other areas that, you know, say we just go, this isn't gonna work, it's not the time, I mean, is there other areas waiting for sidewalk funds to get done, or is this really, you know, the priority? Because I know it's been a long time coming. I'm not trying to get us off of it, I'm just wondering if this somehow falls apart, you know, tell me, you know, there's somewhere else we can be getting our sidewalk, you know, sidewalks happening and other priorities.
Sure, and we've brought the gap, we had a gap analysis, you know, a couple of years ago, and this was one that we concentrated on. We felt that that was the most, you know, helped the most residents on the north end there to try and get people down to the southern areas, to the downtown, actually. And we're trying to do, you know, a trail town type of atmosphere, and we felt that that was one of the boxes that would help us with that. Another one is everything south of Wixom Road. There's several of them that we need to still get in between Old Wixom Road intersection and Wixom Road south of there that we haven't done anything primarily with. One of the drawbacks there is still easements. We haven't gotten any easements there. I haven't really proceeded with that recently again, but I did try and get you know, several easements along that area as well, and that too has been a bit difficult. South, yeah, between basically Total Soccer, that intersection for Total Soccer, south towards, there's the CSX crossing there, and then into the Menards and, you know, the old Ford property. There's some gaps there that we're still looking at.
But this was identified
yeah.
as the top priority, the most valuable area to have it. So if we want it,
Potter Road is another one.
okay, yeah, so I'm just saying, if this falls apart, there's other places that could go. But how long is the millage for?
It's a 10-year millage. So this is year 9 of a 10-year millage, or year 1 of a yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
We've got 9 years left.
That's good,
Yeah.
that's good. All right, I mean, the price of this isn't gonna go down, you know, unless we can find, you know, other than bidding it and finding a better price, but
Yep.
I just wanted to lay out the, you know, we've got other things we can do with it
Yep.
if this falls apart.
Uh-huh.
Getting those easements, sounds like getting those easements has become a really hot item right now. So,
It's
I'll leave it
been,
at that.
it's been a difficult time getting them. I think we're working on them one by one, and if we can't get an agreement within the next few weeks, we'd like to proceed with some kind of eminent domain, but there's, there too, it's a cart, it's a cart and horse issue that if we don't have the project eminent, it doesn't help us move that forward.
But the bid's about to expire, and that's what's.
That's the urgency that
that's the
we had
urgency.
recently.
So, yeah, we're kind of caught in the spot.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, we'll try. I'm done, thanks.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Thank you. So you just said something that made me think. So Councilmember Smiley asked about, you know, the timing, and you had made a comment, if we need to go to try to do the eminent domain, it will help us if we already have something
We have the
approved?
project, my understanding is that if we have the project ready to go, then eminent domain is eminent.
Well, and Adam, I don't know, I'm gonna just
Yes.
hop in and say, you know, an approval from city council potentially helps.
Right.
At a minimum, I mean, we're already in solid shape, given the fact that we've already done as much engineering and have concrete plans. So, I mean, I guess I don't want you to feel like, man, if we don't approve this, we
Right.
can't do it, because that's certainly not true. We have enough information to make a strong case that this is an eminent project.
It sounds
But
like-
it wouldn't hurt, it would help. I mean, it wouldn't detract from our case to say, wow, city council's already appropriated the funds as well. So it would add another.
But, yeah, I don't want to put that,
Well, we can always say city council is ready to go, we're just waiting on
correct.
those.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thanks. Before we get to a vote here, just a couple of things that came up through the discussion here. The prefabricated aluminum pedestrian bridges are in wide use across Michigan. There are a variety of surfaces that can be used. One is the corrugation of the aluminum, there is composite decking, and there's also, you can do hardwood, right? There's a number of different ways to do it. So I think when it does come back to us, depending on how this comes out,
Yes.
or if it comes back to us, it'd be good to get some of those details, I think, would answer some of the questions. And in terms of the traffic regulatory control and the minor traffic devices, yes, that is today's prices, and I know that you and I have attended these ITS Michigan, I don't know if
Right.
it's open to the public,
Yeah.
but I encourage all council to maybe go to one of those, sometimes they're right here at Suburban Showplace, and go to one of those meetings and you see what some of this stuff costs. And a lot of it is the labor to go out there and go up the pole, as they say. So I'm comfortable with that, but I think with the discussion, I think I am in favor of the contingency amendment and not creating a bridge to nowhere that costs this much money. So,
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. The last question I had, just for my knowledge, Marilyn, do you know offhand how much like the annual funding brought in by the Safety Path millage is? Just even a rough estimation, if you know offhand.
Did you say 300, Tim, earlier?
It was right around 3.
This current year is at 288.
Okay. So this is like 3 or 4 years worth of money. All right.
Yeah, we currently have a 1.5 million fund balance in Safety Path.
All right. Any more further discussion? All right, I just want to confirm that what we're going to vote on tonight, we're not going to, it's not for a table, but it's for the approval with contingent on, okay, very good.
Acquisition of all.
Yep.
units.
All right,
We could vote for the amendment and then vote for the.
Motion as amended.
yeah,
yeah, or the motion.
We have 2 votes.
yeah.
Okay.
So the first vote tonight is the amendment to the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And then hopefully I get this right. But this, I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to waive the bid process and award the North Wixom Road sidewalk construction project to Fonson Incorporated, Brighton, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $983,838.59, and authorize the associated budget amendment contingent on the city obtaining the remaining easements to complete this project. Is that correct?
4, correct.
Correct.
Okay, but we need all 4 to complete the project. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the south one.
All right. All right, so,
Right, question in the middle of that?
no.
Okay. I'll ask Adam.
All right. So I got, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks,
you.
Tim.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, group. All right, move on to new business number 5, and that's a Renton sidewalk placement discussion. Councilmember Gatchel, floor is yours.
Thank you. I do appreciate the correspondence item coming back with us. Unfortunately, it kind of illustrated why I wanted to vote no last time and did vote no, is I thought eventually we would get to a point where the sidewalk was going to be put at the maximum depth compared to what seemed to be the consensus, or at least the majority up here wanting it not quite that far into the property. And I understand some of the reasons given, kind of take issue with a few, especially the bullets related to the Oakland County Road Commission and wanting to widen Wixom Road to 5 lanes there. I don't see that ever happening. I don't know that as a city we would want that. 5 lanes is more highway-ish and less downtown-ish of a vibe, and I don't think we would ever want to do that. I think it'd probably lead to some lawsuits for the county if they tried, from all of the HOAs with road frontage along there, because you would be extremely adversely impacting those properties and their values. They'd also have to be probably buying a bunch of the properties. I think the dedicated right turn lane is nice, but probably also not something that's going to happen. I doubt the railroad system is going to want more road work in a turn lane over the railroad. Additionally, that would cause the airline trail to go further down the railroad, and as we found out when we were in discussions with them trying to figure out where to build phase 2, they don't really want it anywhere other than where it is right now. So I think that creates some headache. And then the add-on parking, I know we had a joint meeting a few years ago, and the discussion since then, I don't seem to recall anyone being in favor of street parking that close to the intersection where this development's going to be. And I don't see that getting approved because of the traffic issues that already exist. When you look at the map of what's there, especially on, I believe it's page, oh, they don't have numbers. The second page of the memo itself has that little map on it. And at the north side of the map, you can see the kind of angled sidewalks that are there. And the drawing that we were provided for where this new one would go is even further west than those. I don't know why we can't meet in the middle and just draw off of what's already there and extend that to Mack Park. And then I don't know what the footage is, but the drawings that were provided later in the packet show where's the drawing here? The first drawing after the full memo, where it shows the parking lot and stormwater detention and whatnot, you can see that that sidewalk is even west of those little angle sidewalks. I understand that there's some point of doing this, but the point of building it still doesn't seem to be based on anything that's likely to happen. And I don't want to spend $30,000 putting a sidewalk we're going to tear out, or somebody's going to need to tear out, or makes the property less desirable. Like, I feel like council's wanting to move in one direction with this blank slate that we've talked about, and trying to look at variances and enabling us to have as large of a building envelope as possible. And then everything else that we get from administration is, yeah, but let's build this sidewalk 60 feet off the center line. That's like, it doesn't seem to exactly align with what council or the majority of council seems to want. And this keeps going on with this particular piece of property, and it's a bit annoying, to be honest. I don't know how anyone else feels, that's why I wanted to move it for discussion, but when we discussed this last time, I recall most people not wanting it 60 feet, but finding somewhere else, and now we're back at 60 feet, and I don't think that's feasible. Thank you.
Councilmember Berman?
I share the same opinion that was previously stated. I was disappointed to see this memo, because this is in direct opposition of the direction that was given to administration from this council 1 month ago. And the fact that even 2 weeks ago I asked about it, and it kind of was said, well, it's coming, I feel like that was kind of not honest, because you clearly knew what you were trying to do 2 weeks ago, I would assume, if you were looking for new plans to be drawn up. It doesn't match the rest of the sidewalk, all going down Wixom Road on that particular side. It's all closer to the street. It doesn't match the renderings that we put out to prospective developers. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're adding more sidewalk behind the pavilion, and this rendering now, that's the first time I've seen that. And from the beginning, we always said that when we bought this property, we weren't looking to expand that park, but it seems like at every stance, we keep hearing about the park slightly getting bigger, or people asking about parking or something else. And just adding more sidewalk behind that pavilion is just looking to expand that park as far as I can visualize it. I don't see why administration made the decision or attempted to make.
City Council understand what it is that we were talking about, and that's why we're having this conversation. So this is not an attempt to slide something past you, certainly not. I do want to point out that historically, it has been the policy, and it's in the VCA ordinance, that structures are to be built no closer to the center line of Wixom Road than 60 feet. And we've held other developments to that specific standard. And I provided a couple examples in there. So that is why we have proceeded with that. That's why Mack Park, the pavilion, was placed where it was, is to be in accordance with what the development standards in the VCA ordinance are. So it's not something that we're just inherently making up. That had been, an ordinance decision by the city for many years, and it was implemented to that effect. Now, I will point out that certainly sidewalks are at different distances and different examples, and I can't speak to every case to why that is. So certainly the sidewalk can be closer. Again, in this particular case, it had been our recommendation to put it at that 59 feet and then in, primarily because it would be consistent with on the other side of the road and given the amount of traffic. But more importantly, in reference to, Councilmember Gottschall brought up those bullet points of things you can do when you have 120 feet of right-of-way. You don't have to do any of them, but you leave yourself the opportunity to do that. That could be a city council 10 years, 50 years, 100 years from now. But if you allow structures to be built in those right-of-ways, you feasibly can never get them back. And this is a great example of the kind of things we go through on Beck Road and acquiring right-of-way. So, again, being consistent with ordinances, that's why that's been the policy, and that's why the direction we've gone to give yourself the space. The sidewalk can be at any point in the right-of-way, and you can move it in the future if you need, but maintaining the right-of-way distance with no development, it's to give yourself the space if you ever need it for a variety of purposes, not just widening or not just one thing or the other.
Well, I don't think myself, nor I'm not 100% sure if anybody else was saying that potentially we could look at waiving the right-of-way if the right project came our way. But if you look at the two examples, one being Wixom Station, the sidewalk, there's probably, a 6-foot grassy area there, and then the sidewalk, and then a grassy area, and then the restaurant, and that's 60 feet. If you look at the other example, which is Country Corners, although that's an outdated picture, because obviously the trail is there now. The trail is well within the building's 60 feet, but you're proposing to build the sidewalk at 60 feet. And that doesn't match the intent of what's in front of Wixom Station. That doesn't match the intent of the trail that's in front of Country Corners. The only thing it's attempting to match is the sidewalk in front of the credit union, and that doesn't even look right. It just looks, because it doesn't match anything else down Wixom Road. It jogs in and out several times. It just, especially with us trying to market this property, putting a sidewalk right through the middle of it would be the first thing that would deter me if I was a developer looking at it. Let's put the sidewalk where we think it will look right to match the rest of downtown.
Well, I will say it does match the sidewalk along the townhouses farther north. All those sidewalks are set back at that same distance. Now, it does jog in for the properties that weren't acquired as part of that. So there's an existing house that was, remained, so it's closer to the street, so the sidewalk had to be closer. And then there's the section that wasn't developed, so it jogs in. But again, I just want to point out that if you go farther north, the sidewalks they are at the distance that are prescribed here.
As is the West Retail, Wixom Station is one example that's different, and I can't speak to why that was done that way. But West Retail, as well as Genesis Credit Union, has the sidewalk at the distance that we're talking about. We're just trying to stick with the ordinance language that exists. The council wants to direct otherwise, and say, let's go back to a narrower setback for the sidewalk, then
Well, no,
that's an issue.
the sidewalk itself is not prescribed. Its buildings can't be closer. So we could build.
I'm
the
not
side-
talking about what's prescribed, I'm talking about what's in the pictures. Genesis Credit Union, West Retail, the sidewalks are both at that distance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's,
I'm not speaking to what's prescribed, I'm speaking to what the practice has been.
I'm done, I said what I had to say.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you. I'm in favor of protecting the right-of-way, making it consistent with the ordinance, and the developer's going to come in and do what they want to do anyway, so it's a lot more appealing. I had the opportunity to go to downtown Northville 2 weekends ago on a Friday, and having the sidewalk right next to the cafes and little things, it was actually very appealing as you walk down through it. So I'm fine with having that, a little bit of green space between that and the road, if the developer chooses to do that. So I'm fine with it for now.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you again. Yeah, that sums up pretty much my feelings on it too. Administration is trying to be consistent when, there are some deviations, here and there throughout the city. And yeah, the developer's going to do what he wants to do if and when the time comes. But I do want to just interject one little part that I feel needs to be said. At no point ever, and you would hear it from me loud and clear if I ever did feel that you guys were trying to sneak something or being less than honest with us. Never felt that. This memorandum had the information that we needed to discuss it a little further. And that's why we get here. We get together here twice a month to discuss things, whether they've come up quickly or they've come up over a long stretch of time. So I'm good with how you guys are presenting things to us. And even if I disagree with it sometimes, nobody's trying to sneak anything. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Gunn Fox?
I understand the hesitation from council up here as far as how it looks, matching, trying to get someone to appeal to a developer. I'm a little torn because I don't know how we can not follow our own ordinance. I mean, that's the.
I did, just to make you feel better, the sidewalk placement is not, that's not governed by, building placement
It's the
would be.
building.
And
Okay.
that's part of the whole shtick here, is that, that's a whole different conversation. A developer wanted to build farther in. We're just suggesting a sidewalk where that would be. In the West Retail example, then they expand. You could have an even wider, landscaped, like West Retail. It's like their right-of-way area is even wider than just 6 feet, because you can do that, so you can continue to go farther in. But I do want to make you feel better.
Okay, no, I appreciate it.
But that's
Okay.
why, in other areas along the BCA on North Whitson Road, they are that far back because they don't go farther in. They just put the street lamps on the other side of the sidewalk, and then you have green space.
Understand. Thank you for that clarification. So if we don't put the sidewalk where you had proposed putting it, then where would it go?
We could do it, we could certainly do it another 10 feet in. That's fine. That's no issue. I will say, if when we get a development come in, we would still, your ordinance would say that building needs to be set back 10 feet from that existing sidewalk. And then maybe the developer widens the sidewalk back up to it. Sure, that can absolutely work. It's just the intent, and we do strongly recommend that the city maintain, ownership of 60 feet of right-of-way. If we ever go to convey this property, that would be one of the conditions that we would recommend to you all, is to maintain ownership of the right-of-way. Because, it's hard to get it back. So we do have a unique opportunity that we have. Different conversation for a different day, but
Sure. Okay. So if we move it that much, how far would it be based upon the scenario you just gave? How close is that going to be to Whitson Road?
10 feet, if we moved it 10 feet farther in, would be, and Tim, maybe you can visualize it slightly faster.
17?
So currently, we have 27 feet from the center line, correct?
Yes.
And
So back of curb is.
back of curb to the right of way with the road commission. It's the road commission's right of way at that point. And what we're going to add the 33 to make it a full 60 from the center. So that's 120 feet across.
So from the curb, let's say from the curb.
From the
Oh,
curb.
17 feet then.
Yeah, and then it'd be a 17
17
foot.
feet
In, from there, yeah.
From the back of curb, yes.
From back
If
of
we
curb.
moved it in 10 feet, it would be 17. It would start 17, I'm sorry.
Right, yeah.
So then you'd have 10 feet
And
of
then 10
grass.
feet further in,
Because you do 1 foot of buffer in,
yep,
and then 6 foot wide sidewalk.
Yep.
That's 7, 10. You'd have 10 feet of grass width.
Okay. I'm more concerned, I guess I'm less concerned, this might not go over well, but I'm less concerned about a developer coming in there, because they're gonna do, I mean,
Whatever
we can
they-
always change things, right?
Right.
And if they wanna change it, they wanna pay for it, there you go, good for you. I don't like having the sidewalk so close to Wixom Road. When I would ride my bike along the way, I didn't like being that close to Wixom Road. And families and strollers, I just, I don't like having people walking and riding bikes that close to the curb to Wixom Road. So, I'm not as concerned about the development piece.
And-
I'm
and
more
right-
concerned about the space between the road and the sidewalk. Those are my thoughts.
Councilmember Behrman?
So for clarification, the proposed plan right now has how many feet between the road and the sidewalk?
Between the back of curb and the front of the sidewalk would be, I'm sorry, I think I wrote it down, but 53, 27.
Six.
26, yeah. Roughly, there'd be 26 feet of grass between the back of the curb and where the end of the sidewalk, the interior of the sidewalk.
And where the sidewalk stops is per ordinance where the building could start.
Roughly speaking, yes. Yep.
So in theory, we build this sidewalk. The developer comes in, they want to build a building. The sidewalk we just built is now going to be fenced off because they're going to need that spot to build the building. I agree, I do not want the sidewalk right on Wixom Road. I do not think we need 27 feet of grass between the street and where the sidewalk starts. I think splitting the difference, having 10 feet of grass between Wixom Road and the sidewalk, and then another 10 feet between the sidewalk and where the building would be built, and then if they build the building and they want to add more sidewalk or outside seating and connect it, so be it. But by putting the sidewalk back as far as we physically can, once the development starts, that's going to be fenced off and it's going to be part of it's not even going to be usable for a number, 2 years. And then we're going to have no sidewalk there. So I'd rather move it, or split the difference, or, we keep the property. I agree with keeping the property for a potential expansion down the road, potentially, but thinking long-term, when this gets developed, it's not going to be used during the development phase where you proposed it. Does it make sense?
Sure, yes. During construction, you're absolutely right. That could potentially be problematic. So, yeah, my suggestion, just based on the conversation we're hearing here, and we hear you loud and clear. We didn't have a recommended motion with the correspondence, but I think a motion, or at least just consensus, to say directing administration to build the sidewalk at 50 feet from center in, that would be sufficient, and we'll gladly do that. So that would give you an additional 10 feet of buffer for dealing with, in the future, construction. There'd be that fence. You wouldn't have to block off the sidewalk, so there'd be, you get what I'm saying? I'd be okay with. Does that jive with what you're kind of getting at?
Do the numbers make sense to you, Tim?
Tim, what's the distance of, from Pontiac Trail to the sidewalk at Wixom Station? Do you have a good idea of that? Or can Drew figure that out quickly? Drew's gonna do a fancy computer thing here in a second, he's gonna tell us.
The back of the sidewalk is 27, 28 feet to the front of the building. The actual seating area is probably
I'm talking
7
Pontiac Trail, so how much
Oh, Pontiac.
buffer is there between the street side of the sidewalk and the street?
7 feet. There's 7 feet of
So
grass.
you see what Wixom Station has, that is that.
Sidewalk's 10 feet off of Wixom Road, would that be a safe enough buffer?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yep.
saying, let's just pin that down, and that's where we'll put it. So is it 10 feet, is that adequate? Does that address Councilmember Gronlund Fox's concern about being far enough off the roadway and
Yes.
fits with the other one? So 10 feet off the roadway from the sidewalk back edge, or from the curb back edge to the front edge of the sidewalk, there's gonna be 10 feet of space. And that's where we're gonna put it.
I'm comfortable with 10 feet.
If that's the consensus of council, and I would like to have that, so. Let's make sure that that's really what it is, as opposed to assuming that's what it is.
And we'll need a motion for that, correct?
You could just, just general consensus, I don't know
Okay.
what's your take on a consensus here? Just
I-
everybody give their opinion on it, we don't need a motion.
I don't think we need a
Okay.
motion.
Are you comfortable with 10
Yeah,
feet?
let's-
Is anybody not comfortable with 10 feet? That's the question.
No, fine.
Direction to administration.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna throw another wrench in it.
10 feet between back of curb and the
Do we
new.
want, let's, 10 feet of grass, because currently we have a 5-foot sidewalk that will remain there up to a point of the,
At least temporarily,
Yeah.
in the medium term.
And the-
We've
yeah.
discussed getting rid of that.
we did, but yeah, that wasn't part of the demolition. So there was a portion from the driveway coming into the Renton properties all the way to Renton, to the road. There's a 5-foot sidewalk there currently. Now, it's within the road right-of-way of RCOC, so we weren't going to take that out right now. We'd have to get the permits and whatnot to do that. So if we go 10 feet off of, do we want 10 feet of grass and then put is that,
Yeah, I think we're looking for,
10 feet of grass would be good.
10 feet from back
10
of
feet
curb.
from the back of the curb, so not 10 feet from the edge of the sidewalk that's currently there.
Right.
So
So-
10 feet from back of the
Curb
curb.
to-
Right.
To the
Right,
edge.
this side.
So there'll be only like a 4 or 5 foot piece of grass
In the
between
short
the
term.
two, in the short term.
I would move forward with removing that.
I would remove it as well, I want that
Yeah.
gone, so,
Yep.
yes. Then I want
Gotta
a
get
double
the permit.
sidewalk, that sounds really unpleasant.
That's why I'm-
Not clear.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, we were at back of the curb to the edge of the sidewalk when it was at the, extreme. There was 27 feet of grass. Isn't that what we said? And now it's going to be 10 feet of grass? So that's what I'm hearing, and I know it's too much. It can't be right. I totally can't visualize this anymore. How much did we compromise in, I guess?
17 feet.
Well, it was,
16.
Yeah, 16, yes.
it was
26.
26,
And now it's going to be
and now it's going to be,
10, so it's going to be
10.
16 feet
we
closer.
came way,
Yes.
Well, we still own the property.
Mhm.
all right.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you.
Is that a compliment?
If we put this, it's
Sorry, Matt.
5, if we go 10 feet, even if we go 12 feet, it's 4 yards off of the street, which is more than enough, and it's more than we've got in some spots, frankly, more than we've got in the majority of downtown. But if we put this in now, which seems to be the goal, when are we going to take out the other sidewalk that's not going to be being used? And is this sidewalk that we're putting in then going to get torn up by machinery in the process?
I don't anticipate, and I'll kind of defer to Tim a little bit, but I don't anticipate that we'll need to tear, they won't be all that impactful on the new sidewalk. I mean, it's not gonna be like super heavy machinery. They're mainly just slabs. So we can remove them with staff.
What's the impediment to removing it immediately?
I need to check with RCOC because it's within their road right away.
Just don't let them know.
Don't ask them.
Ask for it.
They won't notice there's a sidewalk gone.
Yeah, honestly, they might not.
This would be the time they do, though.
Well, all right. Are we all set with this item? Very good. I hear nothing else. We're moving on to new business number 6, and it's a priority waste discussion. Councilmember Behrman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. By no stretch of imagination am I advocating that we start doing press releases like some other municipalities and saying that we're going to stop paying priority waste, because I think that's a good way to not get our trash picked up. But I do think the lack of communication coming from the city to our residents, when the residents are still consistently, some neighborhoods worse than others are not having trash or recycling, or I'd like us to start tracking it in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I know like a couple of years ago we had a Google form on the Deer survey or something. Mm-hmm. Something as simple as that, maybe, where we start publicizing it. You know, hey, if your trash wasn't picked up, we want to keep priority honest, so they're providing you with a service that you've paid for. And I think just no communication coming from the city is not necessarily helpful either, because I'm watching in some of the homeowners association groups where people are getting really frustrated by it. I don't know where the calls are. I know last week my trash wasn't picked up. And you never know. I mean, the week before our recycling wasn't picked up. The week before that, landscaping wasn't picked up. And then, yes, the priority is doing a decent job at coming by the next day and getting it, but that's not what they're supposed to be doing. Trash, I can understand recycling maybe not coming in a day or being a day late, but trash, you have rodent issues and other situations. So I guess I'd like to see a more active communication plan from the city going out to our residents, and a more robust tracking system. Or I don't know if you guys are tracking now. People were calling, and I like that information being presented to us and on a timely manner, so we know that priority is getting better, because right now it doesn't feel like they are, at least from my point of view, in my neighborhood and some of the homeowners association groups I see people complaining consistently in.
By no means am I sticking up for priority, but 2 weeks ago, after the storm, I will give them a pass on the yard waste, because we had pole wires and trees down over the DPW, and they couldn't get in to dump trucks or anything like that. And DTE didn't come out till 4:30, 5 o'clock on Wednesday, so that was a lost day there. And do I agree with a company taking over 70 communities in one day and expect everything to go right? No, they didn't. They're not doing things right. But they also ask us to give them 90 days, and we've been in contact with Priority, I think, with weekly meetings. And we'll give them that 90 days, and I think after the 91st day, we cut the slack, and if the service isn't up to par, then that's when we take action. But on the flip side of things, if we press too hard, there's nobody else out there, and we're going to be stuck with no trash pickup. So I think we just need to be patient for a little bit longer, and the city will take action, and we'll go from there. Councilmember Gaccio?
Thank you. I kind of echoing that. I know I was tough on GFL when we first made that switch, but that's because they came in here and pitched us a bill of goods, which we very quickly found out they were not remotely up to fulfilling. And now you have to imagine all of those unkept promises have been inherited by Priority. And hearing the news stories of the equipment that they inherited from GFL as well, broken axles on truck, feces in trucks. It's just like, it makes you wonder what was going on at the other company. But I would say give them a little grace. And in terms of communication, I believe there was possibly a Facebook post about DTE or about down power lines being across the DPW entrance, and that's why yard waste wasn't being picked up. So I think that did get covered. I just maybe in the past we've talked about, what was it, Pixel or something else to do text message or email. Maybe that can be, do we send out an e-blast for that? I would just say some other thing, like yes, a lot of people are on social media. I try to avoid it as much as possible because I hate it and I don't like the people that are on it. But like all the complainers. But I would just say maybe that's an e-blast thing, like maybe on certain stuff, we can't just rely on throwing out a Facebook post. We need to have something else, or we need to bring in Ron Moore as our social media liaison, and he can do Snapchat videos for everybody about power lines. So, but I would just say don't maybe rely on just social media because it gets lost in the algorithm. It gets lost in the feed amongst all the ads that everyone's being shown now instead of posts, and then people don't see it, and it gets mistaken for a lack of communication maybe when it was just something that wasn't shown. So I don't know if we need to re-look at the alert. Do we have an alert system now? Do we do something through the county?
What I would advocate is we'll do a couple prong thing. We can do Facebook posts, we can do the website banner, and we can do an email blast or e-blast as we've called it in the past. Just we don't get advance notice when they're not going to be done by the end of the day. So it happens when it happens. We can put it out after the fact at the end of the day on Wednesday that there were certain neighborhoods that weren't picked up. They're going to come back out on Thursday to address those areas that weren't picked up. It's trash, it's yard waste, it's compost, whatever it is, or recycling, I mean. And we'll just try to put something out as things develop on Wednesday to put out something so that people can leave their trash out the next day and have a relative comfort that it's going to be addressed by the company the next day if it's late. And the other thing I'll mention is we've been giving grades to priority waste, and it's up and down. But we can communicate that to council what those grades have been, and that basically comes from Tim Sigma, based on his knowledge of what was accomplished and what wasn't accomplished in a timely fashion and a non-timely fashion. So we'll provide that information so you can see, roughly speaking, how we've been evaluating them. Your perception is exactly the reality, though. It's been very uneven. It's 1 week it's better, and the next week it's not. 1 week it's trash, 1 week it's recycling. And it's all related to basically their fleet, bottom line. So we have, I think it's 3 vehicles for trash, and how many for recycling? 3 and 3.
Yeah, I think 2 for recycling and then 3 for trash.
And 1 for, is it 1 for compost? Or is it 2 for compost? So it's 3, 2, and 2. 3 vehicles for garbage, 2 for recycling, and 2 for compost. And if one of those vehicles breaks down, it's not getting done that day. And that's what's happening. When the vehicles hold up, they get the work done in a timely fashion. When one of the vehicles breaks down, neighborhoods don't get picked up in whatever is the affected area. So that's, Councilmember Gottschall's correct on that. The fleet's really at the heart of the problem right now, and that's what they're living with and what we're living with. But we'll do something on the communication front. We'll do any channels we have available to us, social media, the e-blasts, and the website banner to try to put information out on that so that people can have some information and we can address that concern from Councilmember Behrman. Yeah.
Also, I don't know how it was in anybody else in there, but my neighborhood last week, I can't remember which group it was, but out of the 3, the trash, the recycling, and the yard waste, there was a supervisor driving behind 2 of the units. So they're monitoring it. They know that there's a problem too, and they're working on it. So, Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you. Damn it. First thing I want to say was, yes, I agree, for the patients. And I forgot, they kind of asked, for, 90 days to kind of get this all sorted out. But I do like the idea of just some sort of, through our channels of notification, to let people know, hey, there's a glitch, they'll be there the next day. Because people will take comfort in just like having an answer to, to their concern. But the last part of this was, folks call and complain. They call the DPW, don't they, saying, hey, my garbage hasn't been picked up, right?
Correct, and that's how the communications have been handled up until this point. It's on an exception basis. In other words, when you call in and your particular item hasn't been picked up, if it's trash, whether it's recycling, whether it's compost. people call in, and that's how we've handled the communication up to now. We could do more of a global effort and do these
Well, as far as
communication
getting
steps.
information in, that, that's data that, is helpful to know. But yeah, I don't know if we can, we can't have a hotline because, who's going to answer it, and it's, more staff and time. But, I don't know, how bad are the calls at the DPW for these complaints? Is it coming up the works over there?
It definitely depends on the day. And it's.
Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. No, whether or not.
No, I don't.
Exactly. Or a Thursday. And if it's Thursday is the issue, then, we're already getting calls at 7 a.m. when the phones open up. And, we would have several voice calls. On average, with waste management, 5-10 years ago, we'd get 3 or 4 calls in a given week. We're averaging now between 15 and 20 that come in, and those are representing more of a subdivision issue. And so if we do get a call and they see a response, they put it out on their Facebooks as well. So we do see some that way. But anything over 20 is a D-, and I think we've had 2 or 3 of those in the last month. And I'm sorry, since the beginning. So in the last 60 days. But we've also had B+ where we'd only get 7 or 8 on that given day. So we do track them.
We have data that we can gauge.
Right.
How good or bad things
And-
do.
and we-
Short of you driving around checking.
We respond to every call that comes in with an email back to Priority and their team. So that part's there. Now, initially, we were going to have them call into the call center that Priority has, and because of the 70 communities that they have, close to 2 million people now that are calling in at different times. That's been a difficult climb for them right now.
After we take our calls.
And we take, and.
Otherwise,
so we-
folks will feel
Right.
unheard.
So DPW receives those calls and emails, and we pass those through. So we have a count each week of those, and that goes back in our grading system.
And if I can, Mayor, before I forget to mention it, the latest thing that we've been working with ROSOC, the authority that we're members of, along with multiple communities here in Western Oakland County and beyond. We have been working with the director there and with the representatives of Priority Waste, and we do have, there was discussion about getting somebody to appear from Priority Waste to talk with council and talk with the public about that. That's something that we've worked out and can be made available at the next council meeting if council's interested in that. So that's just one more possibility of interaction with the company that we could provide if you want to have that. So, and I'm looking for a little direction there.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt.
And you're going to recognize the guy. He's a holdover from GFL,
Oh, okay.
Stan Paramagno.
Right.
Okay,
We've already lined that up for next.
okay, very good, yeah. But we can tell them exactly how we feel and what we're expecting and the 91st day, so.
Yeah, I think a little exchange is the disappointment that we've had and what's going to happen to correct those disappointments and,
Yep.
and make the service what it's supposed to be in the future. That's what I would like to see.
But, yeah, like I say, we'll give them the 90 days, but on the 91st day, the lip service stops and they're gonna have to start performing, so, on a consistent basis.
Now I want to be realistic about one more thing, by the way.
You'll get it.
Leaf collection season is going to be upon us, and that is not going to make things better. So that's going to be an added, issue type of thing for us.
One of the premises for with the change from GFL to Priority was less people in their ranks, not having managers follow them with pickup trucks and have more recycling and the garbage trucks in line, and utilizing more of the video and the monitoring from their base shop. And with that was the premise that they wouldn't need the pickup trucks, they wouldn't need the added managers. That would all be electronic and IT related in the future. And because of the age of the trucks, they weren't able to get all of that in place in time for that. So there are added costs that they are receiving right now for that. The bid that we have, or our community pays $172 a year. Each homeowner pays that each year to have all of our yard waste, all of our recycling, and all of our trash picked up consistently, no matter what we put out there. If we put a couch and 2 refrigerators out there, they pick them up that week. They haven't been consistent, but they are still delivering on a number of things. That being said, if we may have to consider that in the future after this next contract to look at alternatives for that.
Councilmember Behrman?
I guess the only thing I wanted to clarify is I wasn't suggesting that the city should be putting out a Facebook post every Wednesday night. Hey, we heard this neighborhood wasn't picked up, or this neighborhood.
Thank you.
That's not feasible and a good use of anyone's time. Just general, we're working with them, trying to make it better so residents know, we hear them, we see that there's an issue. If we can cut down on your phone calls by having just a Google form for people to fill out, I think that might be easier. Then the information is automatically tracked. You have the address wasn't picked up, the date. And then just general knowledge, if they don't show up on Wednesday, they will be by on Thursday. Please fill out the Google form so we can track it. We're working with them to get the service that you expect, but positive communication that we're working to make it better. Because, lack of a better way to put it, if Priority can't get their act together, they're going to start having to cut communities, and we don't want to be the community that they cut either. So that's why the communication, I think, really does need to be positive, that we're working with them, not 91 days hits and the gloves are off, because I don't think that's going to help either. 'Cause I don't think it's going to be perfect at 91 days.
No.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I wanted to make clear too is that any extraneous circumstance, whether it's a power issue or a storm, tornado, whatever, that type of email blast is very effective, right? On that Wednesday that, hey, there was a major equipment failure and they're not going to be able to make it. But one of the questions on the equipment, where is their fleet coming from?
Coming from the east side of
Now, is there anything to work with them on that, where
They're
the
trying
fleet's
to-
more locally
Yeah.
in our
Actually,
DPW yard or
yeah,
something? They started
We're
from there?
trying to work through those avenues as well. With our recycling in Southfield, the Rossock, they do have to come between those two areas, but they're looking at all of those alternatives
So those are
right
being
now,
looked at. All right, thank you.
I believe they're coming from Clinton Township, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken. Yep.
primarily.
Councilmember Brennan, you satisfied?
Thank you for the communication, or the conversation.
You're welcome. And that concludes the new business portion of the meeting tonight. We move on to the call to the public. I see no public at our meeting tonight, so I'm not going to rule the meeting. So let's go over to the second call to the public. Move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the CMU, we've got a few items in there, and it's basically just encouraging people to sign up for email notifications, take a look at the Crossroads, which was recently published, and also follow the city on Facebook, the idea being that the best way to be informed about these kind of things that come up in terms of city services and things happening in the city is to stay involved with the city in terms of these communication options. So we're encouraging people to go to our website and type e-notification in if you want to sign up for e-notifications. You can follow us on Facebook with Wixom Michigan Government is our Facebook handle. Then the last thing that I'll talk about is leaf collection is also coming up shortly, and that's a very popular service. It's also a very difficult service to administer for the DPW, and we encourage people to follow what's happening there. There's information in the Crossroads newsletter again about how the collection is going to work. You can visit our website and type in leaf collection and find various information resources there, including a video that you can watch to understand how that works. and then again, e-notifications and Facebook. So it's really just mostly focused on encouraging people to stay engaged with the city. A couple of other things that came up that we also have in here. The fire department open house is coming up on October 12th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Early reminder on that, and then also daylight savings time is a time period when the fire department encourages you to change your smoke detector batteries, and that's coming up on us very quickly here in November. So at around this time of the year, you should take a look at that and address that, and make sure you update your batteries and your smoke detectors to make sure that those are not going to fail you when you need them most. And then the other thing is the food scrap recycling program. Again, you can go to our website and type in food scraps to learn more about it. That's a pilot program, as you're aware, that is going to expire along with the yard waste collection in December 11th. So that's something that we're going to take a look at after that period closes out and evaluate how that pilot food program has gone, and then determine from there how we're going to continue to implement it. I'm optimistic we're going to continue to implement it because it's been a popular program, and I think it's a program that really has a possibility of benefiting a lot of different things in terms of how we handle our waste in the city of Wixom. So those are the main things that I was going to cover. The rest of it is dates to remember on the back page of the CMU. And if there's any questions, I'll do my best to address them either now or later, depending on the difficulty of the question.
Assistant City Manager Benson, any comments tonight?
Sure. My only one is City Manager Brown mentioned the list of events. I just wanted to specifically point out, because we won't have another meeting before this, the downtown block party on Saturday, September 21st. It's a good event. We encourage city council members of the community to come out. Nice little fall celebration. That's all I have.
Very good. All right, we'll move on to council comments, and I promised Councilman Smiley he could go first tonight, so you're up.
When you told me that, I said, I don't want to go first. And I'm so anticlimactic, I have no comments.
Councilmember Grella Fox.
Thank you. My only comment is to thank City Administration, specifically City Manager Brown, for the information on the pilot food scrap composting program. It looks from the information that you sent me that it's kind of a combination. People don't know what to do with their food scraps. You can go on Amazon and buy a small container for your kitchen. That's what I did. Or a cheap garbage can. So there's lots of options. It sounds like there's maybe some education pieces too. People don't understand the importance of it. They just think it's something that we're doing, and they don't understand why. So I hope it continues. I think there's things that we can do to educate people of why it's important and what they can do and how they can do it. So thank you very much for that information. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Okay, Councilmember Gacho. Councilmember Barron.
Just a thank you to Wixom Towing for coming out during the storm 2 weeks ago and clearing the trees that were blocking the entrance to our sub. And then a huge thank you to the DPW who, once they were able to get their trucks out, spent probably almost an entire day in my subdivision cleaning all the trees that were down, up, and I'm sure that they've been working tirelessly throughout the entire community. So thanks.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
I had no comments, but just wanted to add to Councilwoman Gordon Fox's comment. The Spurt has a great educational piece, and they talked about it a lot at the open house on why it's important to get food scraps into those piles. So that might be something, if the program continues into next season, to maybe include as part of our website and or information e-blast. So.
Very good. All right, the only thing I was going to do was just throw out a couple of dates, like this Sunday, Barking in the Park. That's always a fun event to attend. And then the block party on Saturday, September 21st from 3 to 8. And if you attend the block party, you can purchase some of the new Wixom swag that's going to be available for purchase there. And then one of my favorite days of the fall is Saturday, October 12th. In the morning, it's the Fire Station Open House. And in the evening, it's the Fall Fest and the Panther Hunt. The Fire Station Open House is from 10 to 2, and the Panther Hunt is from 5 to 8. And Hope to see everybody at one of these events. I'll be there. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move?
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.